Welcome to Thriving with Nature, a podcast that gives you the tools you need to live a modern lifestyle that helps regenerate our planet. And now your host, Hayley Weatherburn.
Episode 53. Happy anniversary. It's been a year. Happy anniversary, Thrivers. Welcome to this week's episode. It's a bit different. It's on a Saturday. I hope for those of you who expected on the Friday weren't too upset when it didn't arrive. But here it is. It's a day later because we are exactly 1 year ago when Thriving with Nature podcast was born. Wow! Isn't that just absolutely amazing? I am in a bit of a reflective moment of what's happened in this year's time with the podcast. The podcast, I've had many different guests. We've had Dr. Elaine Ingham, who is an amazing soil microbiologist. If you check out her episode, it's absolutely amazing. We've had Don Smith about worms, worm composting. We've had James Lavelle and his adventures from like London to Chile with no fossil fuels. There's been Chef Cynthia Louise a few times sharing about food and some amazing connections between the quality of your food and what you're cooking. It's just been an amazing wild ride. There's been so many guests. Finney and Makepeace from Kiss the Ground, and they launched their amazing documentary called Kiss the Ground. The list goes on, and I've also shared with you my adventures. This time last year when I started this podcast, I had no idea that by the time this came around, I would now have my own land to play with. So I remember last year I had just come back from the Sarambuana Eco Lodge, which is, I discovered on the 4th of January last year, I went and stayed for 4 days and I was just in bliss. I was just so in awe of the permaculture of everything and so blown away that I knew I was going to come back. And then of course COVID hit and I didn't get back there until August. Anyway, here we are 1 year later, and just a kilometre around the corner from that Eco Lodge, I now have my beautiful land that I'm getting to play with. So wow, and I want to thank you for those of you who've been here listening, since the beginning. I'm just chuffed. Thank you so much. This is a wild ride and it's only going to get more and more exciting. As I said in the last episode, I have these goals, I have these plans. I also have with the podcast, I really want to get some more interviews with some amazing people, and I'm starting to list that down here. I want to share more interviews and give more quality information so that you're really getting something out of this. So I'd love to hear from you. If there's certain people that you would love to hear on this podcast, let me know. I have dream guests like Dr. Zach Bush, because his balance between growing food, the human immune system, nature, the microbiome is absolutely fascinating, and to me really is spot on and is a future glimpse of how the medical industry really could be. I would love to have him on. And there's just so many interesting people who are doing amazing things with nature, biomimicry organization, you name it. So anyway, we come to January, and what is the update? For me, for those of you who are following the ride, Christmas, I got the best Christmas present ever and I landed some land. So that was a great ending to 2020 for me. And now, since then, I have actually cleared the land in regards to just the grass. I didn't want to cut too many trees or plants, because at this point, I need to still observe and decide what is it that I want for this land and get really clear. I've built an observation deck, a bamboo observation deck, which you'll see on the Instagram. You would have seen it by now. I call it the penthouse, my bamboo penthouse. And it's there so I can sort of see the potentiality of the view, where I would like to place the house, what the land looks like from above, so I can start to get an idea of what I need to do. Then I've met with the landowner again, because I need to create the access. So that's what's going to be happening over the weekend, is really solidifying my new access to the land, because I've been using a back entrance and I would prefer to have my own entrance into my own home, essentially. So that's another exciting development that's happened. And it's been an absolute pleasure in that Pat Gitta is his name. He speaks hardly any English. And of course, so I have been improving my Bahasa Indonesia, my Indonesian language. And I can see this. It's the first time yesterday it was the first time we got to hang out together out of formality of I want to lease your land. There's all these formalities and contracts, and lots of other people are involved just to go through the process and make sure it was great for both parties and all these kind of things. And I could see and I could feel this, what I feel is this genuine soul who loves farming and who is really happy to share his land with someone, which can be unusual. I've heard lots of people get burnt, and I mean, it's only the beginning, so I never know. But genuine, super nice person. So we managed to communicate. We were talking about the access. He brought his chainsaw to cut down a couple of trees, and he said, if you ever need to use my chainsaw, you can use my chainsaw. This is all in Bahasa. There was a couple of times I had to pull out Google Translate. But then we sat down and I was showing him Syntropic Agroforestry. I was showing him some pictures and trying to explain sort of my vision. And so that was pretty cool in itself. And I just felt this connection, and I have so much to learn from him. I was asking him so many questions. I was like, how long does the salak take to fruit? How long does a durian take to fruit? What happens when, how do you cut it? All these things, I started asking him all these questions. I said, I'm going to ask you lots of questions. You've got all this experience. I want to know everything. And he kind of smiled. So really, really excited to see where this develops. He's also got this other piece of land that I really want to do some organic organic rice growing and try and recreate how they used to have their rice paddies back in the day. And so that's another little project I want to do. There's so many things I want to do up here. I want to create a composting area for the whole village so that we can start to develop a composting business that can help some of the village people can run, and that we can start to really minimize our waste and have an awesome composting area. So that's something that I really hope to have as a composting business, and I'll have someone managing that. And so that will be pretty cool and interesting. And then people can come and get the compost for their gardens. I want to help some of the locals have, beautiful gardens inside their compounds. They do have it. It's quite concretey in some of their compounds. They like the concrete. But I would love to see them have, they do, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of the locals that do grow their own things. There's you look at dragon fruit fences everywhere. There's some magnificent dragon fruit fences of this dragon fruit that's just taking over these concrete walls. You see in the street, there's a jackfruit tree, it's actually quite interesting. It's this short little jackfruit tree, and it just has jackfruits growing on its branch, on its trunk. So they're aware of that, and there's a lot of fruit and food to eat, and they do have their veggie gardens in the back. So I want to encourage that. I'd love us to become more self-reliant as a village, but obviously if that aligns with them as well. So I don't want to come in and change it for the sake of changing it. I want to come in and see what things I can do to help the village become more and more successful, healthy, all these things. How can I help be a integral part of the success of the village? That's sort of my intention and goal, in a way that, aligns with them and they want it. It's not, I don't want to come in and just change things, because that's not how it's done. So exciting stuff. And I just want to say thank you so much for listening. There's lots of things going to be happening for this podcast, and so stay tuned. But please contact me in Instagram Messenger or Facebook Messenger under Thriving with Nature, and let me know, who would you love to see or to hear from on the Thriving with Nature podcast? what kind of things do you want to learn on the Thriving with Nature podcast? What would be really interesting and fascinating to hear? Because I want to share I'm recording my journey for YouTube, so those videos will be coming soon. But I would love to make sure that when you're listening to this, there's some really gold value that you're getting some kind of learning from, which I think is really important. So there you go. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. I look forward to speaking to you next week where we start a whole new year on this podcast. But yeah, the adventure. Who knows where we'll be next year? How very exciting. All right. Have an amazing day. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Hey, if you enjoyed listening to my podcast, remember to subscribe to hear more. You also have to come check out the Living Supplement Garden, a garden that reads your individual's body's condition and grows the substances it requires to move towards optimal health and potentially healing your ailments. When we align with nature, we thrive with nature. I'd love to have you join myself and others as we discover the magic of nature together and strive to heal both ourselves and our planet. Go to thrivingwithnature.com.